So yeah, so homework, and then we're going to be going over volunteer timesheets. You each are going to fill out your own volunteer timesheet for February, and those are the hours that we get grant match for to put back into our services and things like that. So I have a sheet of what days you guys attended, and then after that we're going to be watching a quick movie called Healing Me, and it's about trauma-informed care. And that'll kind of lead us into the next couple of classes. It's a good movie. It's very positive at the end, so I like it. So you want to start going over homework?
Yeah. Do you want to wait on Mariah? Should I start?
Is she in the bathroom?
Yeah, she's
okay. Yeah, we can wait.
Okay. Oh, speak with Nicole. And then what about
Jessica, is Danny coming today?
He's here, yeah.
Oh, he's there. They missed the questions.
Okay. All right, so let's pull out your homework, and you want to go over like the first. Actually, I'll stop.
Yeah. So there's some classes that we haven't attended.
I guess we'll do this one. So I'll go over the ones that I remember, and then.
Well, we can go in order, and we'll figure it out.
Okay, so we're doing homework. So everyone pull out your homework sheets, and we're going to go over the classes that we've been at and write stuff.
Here's our
Okay, so we're going to start with your homework that says History of Domestic Violence. So find that in your binder.
We're gonna find out.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. It's not. I want you all to really pass the test, and make it easier on you.
History of Domestic Violence. All right, everyone got that one? Yeah. Okay. Danielle, why don't you read the first question?
Okay.
And then someone else say what they think it is, and I'll tell you what's correct.
In which year and city did the organized movement against domestic violence begin?
Anybody have an answer?
She raised her hand.
1970s?
Yep.
And in what city?
St. Paul.
St. Paul, Minnesota.
The second student sheet.
The second page.
So history on domestic violence, Daniel.
Homework on history of domestic
Yep.
violence. St. Paul, 1971.
Yes.
I happen to have that written down for some reason.
All right, Mariah, next question.
What is domestic violence?
Someone want to give their definition?
One person abusing another repeatedly.
In a family situation, like somebody's like living with somebody or like in a constant relationship with that person.
So
who's
that
called domestic.
intimate part.
Yeah, so, all right.
Yeah, so we're talking about words like pattern, like Greta said, power and establishing power and control. So the definition is one person abusing another in an intimate relationship in order to establish power and control. But you could also talk about patterns of it, so maybe it more than one time happens.
All right, 3 types of domestic violence.
Verbal abuse,
Okay.
physical abuse, and sexual abuse.
And it doesn't have to be the same 3 type on yours, as long as you guys have 3 types down.
Raise hands. I
Oh.
gotta be able to see who I'm going to.
Raise your hands, we'll call it.
So we have verbal, physical, sexual, emotional, economical.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so when you guys are done writing, let me know and we'll move on to the next one. Everyone okay? Almost? So next one is gonna be homework on introduction to domestic violence.
So it should be the next color page over.
And Greta, you wanna read the first question?
Sure. What is an example of gender roles in the media?
I put women in cleaning product commercials.
They're usually the ones that are.
This is a great dish soap. Like,
Yeah, a woman.
That's a good point.
Funny enough, super random, but on Dish, there was a girl who's now like a famous person, I can't remember her name, but she saw that when she was like 10 years old, and she wrote Hillary Clinton a letter about it.
yeah, I
Yeah,
saw this.
and she got it changed. So that company no longer had that.
That's a good take.
It's men driving pickup trucks on a farm.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Dodge Ram.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or a Ford.
They're always
Literally
asking.
any other
Right.
truck.
That's
Ford.
Yeah.
So I can't buy one?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's never a commercial with shit.
No, she's in the back of the truck in a bikini.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so true. Yeah.
True.
Or like beer
Much better.
commercials always been
Are there
towards
Jeep
men.
commercials? Like, I feel like that's like
Jeep commercials never
my
have people in
stereotyping.
it.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're
Hot
always like,
Wheel and Jeep. The commercial should have.
Jessica, you want to read the next one?
What are 3 phases of domestic violence? I don't.
So we're talking about the cycle of violence.
Right.
Dar.
Honeymoon, tension building, and then abuse happens.
You guys can expand as much as you want around this, but just have those 3 things down. Jessica H.
what are some of the impacts of domestic violence on the individual and the community?
Victims of severe violence lose nearly 8 million days of paid work.
So that's
Alright.
both and community.
So I went more vague. I have like physical consequences, emotional, psychological, social, health consequences.
I think what they're trying to talk about with the individual and the community is just trying to remind people that it's a community issue, even though it may not necessarily happen to you. So they want to know the negative impact that it has on you.
So yeah,
as a
so you can be
community
vague or
member.
you can be specific.
Well, yeah, they always want to bring up the monetary issues that
Right.
happen in the community, of course.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, next one.
Eric has my homeworks. So nope. Nope.
How does it affect the community?
I don't think.
So,
I have an extra copy if you want it after though.
I haven't done
Oh, okay, cool.
it. Yeah.
healthcare, costs go up, you have more visits to the ER, you have more time for people to focus on, healthcare professionals to focus on domestic violence instead of other issues. We can talk about employment, like Janet said, missing days of work, getting fired, loss of wages, things like that. Also,
Public assistance.
public assistance, yep, is another one. The use of a public assistance when people have to flee their homes and then get on public assistance.
Even just like socially as a whole, just not having, like people can be really skilled in some area, but they are hidden or kept from the community because of their user.
Right. Danny, you want to read the next question?
What is the connection between animal abuse and domestic violence? Is that where we're at?
Yes.
So I would say in this one, it is just to acknowledge that there is a connection between animal abuse and domestic violence, and people that abuse animals are 5 times more likely. It's either 3 or 5, I can't remember.
It may be 3 times.
But are more likely to abuse humans as well, and that is a sign of progressive violence.
Let me know when you guys are good on that page.
One, I think just to add to the other one about the impacts of domestic violence, and the individual in the community, it really screws up the kids.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time.
Sure.
Yeah. It continues that cycle to the
To
children.
see that, to feel that fear, to be threatened, to like have to choose sides. Yeah, they become extremely conflicted and fearful.
Yeah. Traumatizing the kids. And
Terrible legacy.
Sure. Great point.
So we're gonna go to crisis intervention. There's gonna be 2 parts, so we're gonna do part 1.
Does anybody know the 6 steps?
Check for safety. Establishing rapport. Continue to explore thoughts and feelings and needs.
Order, I'm sorry.
Yep.
She said order.
Yeah.
Number 1 is check for safety.
Check for safety.
Do you want me to write them up on the board?
Yeah.
Yes.
Establish,
That would be established.
establish rapport. So, number 2 is continue to explore thoughts, feelings, and needs. Number 4 is explore choices and resources. Number 5 is plan of action. And number 6 is thank you.
Did you have focus on that?
Focus on the conversation.
What was 2?
I think that's 4.
Establish rapport.
Establish rapport for 2? Yeah. You can also say establish trust. What's 3?
3.
Continue to explore your common needs.
Good choices. No choices.
Whatever that is. 4?
Focus. Conversation.
Yeah, what are we focusing on?
Investigate conversation.
Okay.
Well, you're focusing on the needs of the person.
5?
Continue to explore thoughts, feelings, and needs.
Continue.
Sorry, explore choices and resources. 5 and 3 are very confusing.
I thought 5 was plan of action.
Yeah, I did too.
And then 6 is plan of action.
So I guess this would be like, when you're talking to them, they may be like having word vomit, like their feelings are kind of everywhere, so you're trying to get a feel for that. Then your ending is the focus, so getting the focus more on their choices. Then you go to focusing on exploring what choices they have, what resources are at their disposal, and then you end with C.
I think I taught you guys 5 instead of 6 is what the
Yeah.
confusion is. Sometimes it's just, no, it's plan of action is the end one.
Okay.
In the page, it says 6 is thank you. Is that not part of it?
Thank you that's just like the ending. Like you don't want to forget to thank them because they're in the middle of a crisis with you. So it's more just creating that boundary of here, like the safety plan is something you're going to create with them, and then the last thing is probably like thank you for coming.
I think we're missing focus in our book.
In your book. Oh wow, you are. Huh.
Yeah.
You gotta write it right now.
Andrea, what is going on?
I know. Type this whole thing up, you guys.
Well, and the thing with these is they can change. Like, it's not like you have to do everything. Check for safety should always be number 1, but like in a conversation, you don't have like a strict script.
Okay. Sorry for the confusion.
All right, where were we? Okay. Next question.
How is crisis intervention relevant to Tahoe Save Alliance?
That's really what it's all about. That's it.
Easy question.
Help your community.
Right, so we're providing crisis intervention services when people first walk through our door. That's probably one of the number 1 things that we provide, and then after we do the crisis intervention, we provide continual case management to get someone back to where they need to be. That's a mental health first aid.
So we'll skip part 2. All right, and then we're going to skip part 2 because that is going to be coming up. Non-sexual assaults. Okay, so we'll move on to homework on sexual assault. Everyone got it?
Okay, so we're skipping part 2, correct?
Correct. Part
Okay,
2
got
is
it.
going to come up in, I think, the next week. Derek?
Okay. What is sexual assault?
And I believe on the test, they do ask for the actual definition, right? Tell the states and
Yeah, we're just asking for the definition in the book, yeah.
okay. So your definition in the book, if you put the legal definition of sexual assault, that's fine too.
Any unwanted sexual contact.
That's as simple as that, it's cool. Other answers are sexual abuse is forced, unwanted, coerced, or tricked sexual contact. And then just to know the difference between that and sexual harassment is sexual harassment is on any unwanted sexual attention.
Harassment, attention, assault, touch. Bonnie, 3 types.
Name the 3 types of sexual abuse.
Date rape, statutory, and spousal.
What is the most common?
Date rape.
So there's technically 5, but you just need to name 3. The other 3 would be so acquaintance, which is date, statutory, spousal, child molestation, and then stranger rape too.
The least common is stranger. Tanya?
What is stalking?
Yeah. Just write sexy on the So, here you guys go. Here's the definition. Stalking is a pattern of repeated and unwanted attention, harassment, contact, or any other course of conduct directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to feel fear.
Or any other type of contact?
Yeah. Course of conduct
Course.
directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to feel fear.
I know, I was just gonna say, like,
So
how
that's
do
the
they
that's the
fear?
tough thing in the law, especially when prosecuting, is that they have to prove that kind of stuff, which is sometimes tough.
That word gets thrown a lot. Does everyone know how sexual assault ties into Tahoe Safe Alliance? That should be pretty rhetorical, but just making sure in case anyone wasn't sure.
It does safe stand for something.
Tahoe Safe Alliance?
Because it's capitalized, so.
No, it stands for
Stopping abuse for everybody.
stopping abuse
Right.
for everyone.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's what
Oh,
Yeah.
it stands for. Sorry, I forget.
I forget that one exists. We haven't done short the use of evidence.
So how does sexual assault tie into Tahoe Safe Alliance? We serve sexual assault victims along with domestic violence victims.
That's what elder use because we haven't done All right, so we're going to skip over a few. We're going to skip child sexual abuse, SART, bystander human trafficking, and immigrant and LGBTQIA communities, and we're going to go to elder abuse and persons with disabilities.
I have SART in there. We also should go down.
Yeah, because we haven't had that class yet.
SART will be the 22nd.
So we're
That's
doing
got
the
a different
immigrant.
binder.
This is the same binder everyone else has.
And that's
They have homework
because
in it, but
I think you gave yours to Eric.
still. Gave me what?
I think you got the one that was yours.
At least this one works. Oh my way, there's no skills over there
Like, you know, there wasn't one like you had this the whole time.
One of my bills wasn't in here, like I would have believed this was mine. No, I
Homework on elder abuse and persons with disabilities.
Interesting. Alvarado. I will get you.
I mean, I haven't opened it in a week, so I don't know.
I thought she might have it.
The switch happened.
Do you want to take your bill out?
Yeah, I mean,
They like switch binders.
I got so fucking paid for
these
that.
look like mine.
The binders next to
I'm so sorry. Oh, how you grab this?
Oh, wait, let me see that, let me see that.
Is that for a different?
That's mine, it's for someone else.
Oh.
You know what?
Casa, like.
Oh, the child advocate training thing?
Yeah.
I'm like, how did you get that?
Nope.
You just grabbed the wrong binder.
I grabbed the wrong binder.
I was gonna say, I was like, that doesn't look
Like,
like.
am I really
I
that
thought you were doing my own
confused?
back. I'm like, wait, not all this is really funny.
Too many classes.
We
Sorry, guys, sorry.
So just answer the
It's all the cultural programs.
All right.
Elder
So elder abuse.
Okay, wait, so we're skipping the immigrant. LGBT.
Correct. All right. So the first three involving federal immigration laws, you guys haven't heard yet, so we're not going to ask you to answer that.
The snow days and canceled classes is why it's all kind of conjumbled right now. Usually they kind of somewhat go in order. So we're just going to give you the answers to what we have seen.
So what is caretaker abuse from the presentation you guys had yesterday?
Do you recall?
So we're skipping.
Come on, guys.
Caretaker.
Less than 24 hours.
We're skipping the top one?
What's that?
We're skipping the top one?
Yes.
Yes, because you guys haven't heard yet.
What did you say, Becca?
Abuse from the caretakers. Directed towards the patient.
They didn't really
Specific.
So let's
Denying
talk
medication.
about what a caretaker could be for someone who's
over-medicating.
Over medicating. Okay.
Taking their money, using their bank, you know what I mean, using the money.
Financial.
Not letting them go to a home because they want to keep them close to keep their money.
Isolation.
Neglect.
Neglect. Okay. Any of those and all work in your definition. True or false? People with disabilities are less likely to be abused.
False.
I'm glad you guys got that.
Yeah. Oh, see.
And then safe house?
Yep. All right, so next one we're gonna go on is safe house and local resources.
It should be forward.
And this was when Coco and Imelda came in and talked to you guys, so you wanna refer to that
The
information?
day that my staff member was Brenda. It was the class.
Me and Andrea were not.
The day of my play.
Mine's like 4
I can recite it right now if you want to hear it. So I could
Did you end up memorizing it?
Yeah, we have to. They made us memorize
Is this
it.
all it is?
What?
What's it called, this one?
Safe house and local resources? right? Cheese.
Oh yeah, this good.
Mine's still out there.
It's like the second one from the back.
Up to page
There it
86.
is.
Next to page 86, it's page 87.
87.
All right. What conditions must be met before someone can stay at Tahoe Safe Alliance Safe House? And I believe Coco handed out the admission form that they have to answer before getting admitted.
Checklist?
Yep.
No, I'm in the
I saw it in someone's binder.
Um,
But if you know off the top of
They
your
have to
head.
they have to be either in a dangerous situation
Like fleeing.
or just flat a
They have
dangerous
to be
situation.
fleeing.
So they have to be actively fleeing
Yeah.
is the key word. If you're fleeing but you're not actively fleeing, fine line. So actively fleeing a domestic violence situation.
I would be fleeing but not actively.
That's a good question. So because our safe house is so limited with only 3 rooms, you have to put priority to people who are actively fleeing, which means have left their abusive relationship in 30 days or less. Sometimes we do 60 days, things like that. But you do have people who are what they would consider themselves as still fleeing, which is understood. They might be, jumping shelter to shelter because they're still unsafe to go back home. They might, have stayed at a friend's house and now that has ended and they might need a place to live. So we're looking at people who have left in the past 30 days because that's the most dangerous time. So we take priority to them. But it's case by case.
Yeah. And it weeds out people who are just trying to get shelter during a difficult time, or it's winter and it's snowing, so that's why it's there.
not just homeless.
Correct.
Right, and we have resources, thankfully now in this town for people who are suffering from homelessness. The warming shelter is a resource when the weather permits it, I would say it that way. And then there's other different lines that we can call and stuff like that. But because our grants that pay for our safe house are directly for domestic and sexual violence victims, that's why we have to ask those kind of questions. So.
That's the only thing. It's a
Must
condition.
be 18 or older or an emancipated minor.
Yes.
Correct. No children without an adult present. I mean, I think there are other specifics like on the checklist. Like you can't
No
discriminate,
drugs.
you have to agree to no drugs, no alcohol. So when they say conditions, there's a checklist. But the biggest is they have to be
So the
actively
2 is actively fleeing and 18 and older. I think what Catherine's talking about is just more of explaining about what goes on in the house and that they can't have drug use and stuff like that.
Okay.
If someone comes to you and needs housing assistance, who would you refer them to? But is there a specific program that is specific to the housing?
Housing for what?
So it would be the Tahoe Safe Alliance residential program.
Which is Coco and Imelda.
There's no acronym though.
Sorry, we're not the army.
And then just on the basis of if someone describes themselves as being homeless, the emergency warming shelter in Truckee is another good referral.
What did you say?
Residential program.
Housing, residency, just think of those 2 words.
When is the warming shelter only open during storms and extreme cold?
So the limitations that the town of Truckee put on is it has to be extreme weather and extreme weather, which is like raining when it's like cold outside, or 15 degrees or below, more than 5 hours, I think it is, throughout the night. Which the warming shelter has been open for the past every night for the past week or so, which is great, but there are those nights where it doesn't fit those criteria and they have to go find somewhere else to go. Project Mana does have a homeless outreach coordinator, which will help people during those times when the emergency warming shelter is not open. Those are the limitations that the town put on for us to even get the emergency warming shelter, for Truckee to get the emergency warming shelter.
Truckee refused a homeless shelter altogether.
Why did
Why?
Well, not all of Truckee refused. I
Right,
mean,
not
I was
all of
there.
Truckee.
So that's
Yeah.
horrible to say that. There was a lot of support. It's just tough when you it's tough trying to put a homeless shelter in a town because people say if you build it, they will come.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Well, there already is a bunch of homeless
Right.
Which
people.
is meany to even
And
say
so,
that, but it's just the practice.
luckily, Project Mana and a couple other organizations in the area band together, got some statistics. Church of the Mountains is where it's at. Kathy Foley runs it, all based off on volunteering. And
donations.
they presented a really good, strong presentation and it got approved. And it's been 2 years already. This is the second year. So that's great.
Thank God they got it last year.
No, totally.
Yeah, last year it was open a lot.
Yeah.
We weren't here then, but wasn't it because there were some homeless people that died?
Yeah, there was a person that died in front of the post office. He, froze to death from hypothermia. There was probably a couple more cases, but that was the one that was presented most at the town hall meeting, city council meeting, or whatever it's called. Which is unfortunate because, I mean, Project Mana, Justin, he's the outreach coordinator for the homeless there. They have a count. I mean, you have 30 to 40 people that stay here that are homeless year round.
Wow.
Some migrate down to Reno or down to Sacramento, but there are ways to live in this town and be homeless and get by. But because of the harsh weather that we experienced, that's why everybody thought there was a need for a warming shelter. So it's not a homeless shelter, it's a warming shelter. And it's open, people start going in at 5 p.m. They get hot food, cot and everything. They can bring animals, which is great. They all do like a movie or something like that. And then the next morning, they'll wake up, get something to eat, and then they have to leave. It's just a warming
And they
thing.
have a ton of like, shoes
Mhm.
and coats and mittens.
It's all
and-
volunteer based also. So
Yeah.
the people that are doing the dinner and staying up there with them, it's all based on volunteering and donations, which is great. It's awesome, and if it progresses, eventually maybe we'll have a homeless shelter for people to stay constantly and not just permitting 15 below degree weather.
Because even 20 is freezing.
That is
cold.
like, that blows my mind, like, it's not, that is below freezing.
Or even like the
Like,
feels like temperature, like when it's windy out.
Sure.
Right, when it's
Wind
windy
chill.
and 25 degrees, it really feels like 10.
It's a start. It's a start though, and it's great. And I would definitely encourage you guys to support them. If you want to get connected with the email that they send out, let me know and I can send that to you guys. They're doing good stuff there.
Yeah, always a place to donate old blankets.
So it's at Church of the Mountains. Is where they open it up. They have like a kitchen and areas there. They even have a separate area for families. So if a family becomes homeless and they want to stick together, instead of being in an open cot area with everybody, they have like a certain section where they can put them.
All right. Substance abuse
And
next.
just to be clear, like on the first one, the conditions that must be met. So they have to swear that they're not on drugs or alcohol or.
No, that's just to be in the house once they get approved. The two
Oh.
main ones are going to be 18 or older or emancipated and actively fleeing a DV situation.
Most domestic violence shelters have drug tests. We try to shy away from that because it will keep people in unsafe situations, and we take it up to what they say. If they say that they've been clean and they're clean now, we take it as face value. If they go in and they're actively using in the shelter and we find out, then they will be asked to leave.
Yeah.
But we definitely try to shy away from drug testing. I know there are certain areas in Carson City and down the hill that do drug test people coming into the shelter long term, which is not a great practice, I would say.
Well, who do they like say, oh, you failed your drug test, so you can't come at all? Or would they say, like, you failed your drug test, like, the next one has to be clean, like, once you're staying here? Or they just...
It's usually, you failed your drug test, you can't come in. I know, like CORE, which is, like a drug rehabilitation center in the area, and Truckee, you have to prove that you've been sober for, I think it's 2 or 3 weeks before you can get in there. I mean, it would
Seems
seem
weird,
counterintuitive, but that's the limitations that some people have put on. Now, which is interesting, is pretty sure federal funding says that you can't drug test, but people still do.
I was gonna say, is that part of the grant, or that's just like a personal?
So it would be, I'm more than sure that I've talked to the residential program that they, you can't drug test for somebody to get services in domestic violence and sexual assault based off VAWA, but places still do based off of old traditions of where it's come from.
Is part of that because when an alcoholic stops drinking, they can go right into detox?
Sure. I mean, I've never worked for a place that has detoxed or has drug test somebody. I would say that they're probably afraid and not equipped to handle something like that, or not knowing resources, hospital if somebody's detoxing really bad, things like that. But
And I mean, I feel like it could be a liability thing then, because if you put someone in a safe house, they detox. It's not necessarily, I mean, it's not the advocate's job to monitor someone as they detox. That's a rehabilitation center.
Right.
So then you're like on
Different
the line
services.
of what.
So if somebody comes in seeking residential services and needs shelter, but is using and has said that, we'll try to connect them with an in-house rehabilitation center first and get them into there, and then possibly still work with them on domestic violence services. Because our advocate and our shelter is different than other shelters. Our shelter is an unmanned shelter, so we have advocates there during the day checking in on people and making sure case management is going well, but at night it's open for them to come in and out. I mean, they have a curfew and stuff like that, but there's other larger shelters have a staff 24 hours.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, just kind of a similar thing. Like a lot of the times, a lot of the shelters, they put them into detox, and then they do case management when they're in detox, and then they're able to come to the shelters after. That's just my experience. Yeah.
But see, I feel like it's great because we let if somebody needs drug and alcohol services, we'll go take them to the professionals to deal with that, and we can still provide case management and know that they're safe there.
Solving one problem at a time.
Shelters are a little different if you look across the country and how they operate. I mean, very different. I used to work at one in Michigan, and it was like Fort Knox, trying to get in, doors locked. You had to get through 2 locked doors to get in. Curfews. I mean, there's 56 beds. It was nuts. Compared to ours, is a 3-bed, very nice, calm shelter to kind of relax and regroup your mind after experiencing trauma.
Kind of homey.
Well, it's a home.
Yes.
So it's a nice home feel. Any other questions?
Cool. All right. I think that's it for homework.
I have something to share. There is a gang violence prevention symposium happening in Sacramento it's in April. So just in case anyone's interested in continuing the discussion on violence prevention, that's coming up.
Can you send that to me?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have to buy a ticket, and I'm planning on going, so
Okay,
that's definitely send it to you.
Cool. Thank you. Cool.
Good ride share.
There you go.
Especially you and I, we're in the same neighborhood, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I follow you guys.
Well, no, from here. Yeah. From here. I follow you home.
Just like got my phone right. Thanks for letting me know.
No, another thing is if anybody is interested in going down to there and I get the organization to approve it, we have, if you ever see me in a van, it's because I'm in my organization van. It's in the Tahoe Safe Alliance van. And we have vans that we can pack people in there and go down there and do that, even volunteers. So we can save gasoline that way too.
Minivan. We have interesting conversations.
Yes.
That's a long drive.
Okay, so now we're gonna do timesheets.
I'm about to go back into the Maryland Correctional Institution for Women to do a presentation for the inmates here. Just 4 years ago, I was an inmate here. It's good to be on this side. It's good to be on this side.
I heard about Tonier through the different partners that we have in the community. Her name is out there. She's known by a lot of people for the positive work that she's doing. And you wonder, how could someone be so happy and jovial and have gone through all of the trauma that she's gone through in her life?
Hello. Okay, so this is B building. This is the very last housing unit that I was in. Just 4 years ago, this is my home. In 1989, I remember the first time I was here, I went through the jail system, thefts, prostitution, possession of CDS, possession of open container. I'm coming into work at the National Association of State Mental Health Program Directors. My mother had a way of, when she hit you, she would hit you with a belt, and she would hold the strap of the belt so the buckles would hit you, and she would hit you in your face and your head with it. So we often got a lot of scars from the belt buckle. And this is another birthday. This was in '94. At this point, I was homeless, sleeping beneath a bridge, eating out of a trash can. I couldn't go in anybody's house, including my mother's. He brought me down here to get high with it. He said, you know, you don't sleep in the bus stops no more. A lot of times I was beaten. These two houses were crack houses. Squash down here and take a hit of crack right here. It's a very secure building. And this is my office. I have an office. I have scars. I have a scar right there. Right here I have, you can't really tell, 2 black eyes and a busted lip. Thank you for receiving us here in El Paso. My name is Tonier Kane. I was molested, I was raped, I was beaten, I was raped, and I was like, this is how it's supposed to be for me. I am nothing, I'm never gonna amount to anything, and this is how it is. And I'll stay here, I'll die just like this. And I had become comfortable with that. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Kane here to NCLW. Good evening, ladies, and thank you so much for coming out and spending a little time with me tonight. I'm so thrilled to be here, to be able to stand in front of you beautiful, wonderful women and just help you to understand that it's all about you. So I'm telling you, I'm standing before you with 83 arrests and 66 convictions. They say I was going to spend the rest of my life in jail or die in the streets. And I tell you today, not so. Not so. And, you know, I end up with the drug addiction of 19 years. But you know what, I don't have to tell you about what it is that goes along with drug addiction, do I? I really don't. But what I want to tell you that it wasn't using drugs that was the problem. It was what happened to me as a child. My mother would entertain a lot of different men. She would be partying and you would hear her singing and, you know, laughing. But when the music stopped, I knew I was going to start hearing the footsteps come towards our bedroom door. And at age 9, I positioned myself in front of the bedroom door to protect my brothers and sisters, but in the event, it made me available to the men. I brushed my teeth because I thought maybe I could brush away the smell of the men when they did the X to my mouth. My mother's an alcoholic. She's always been an alcoholic, and sometimes she would leave the household 2 and 3 days at a time. Well, finally at age 11, somebody thought that something was truly wrong in our household. Because we were always looking out the windows, but we weren't allowed to play. My mother wouldn't allow us outside because she didn't want anyone to know what was going on in that apartment. Well, somebody thought that was wrong, and they called the Department of Social Services. And when social service came into the household and seen the conditions we were living in, they immediately removed us from that household and put us into foster care. Well, we ended up going to court, and I remember the court day. I was excited because I was seeing my brothers and sisters, and she was there. You know, we were on a pew, and in the front, my mother was there. She was crying. She was real upset, and sitting beside her, y'all, I don't know where they found him at, was my father. He was sitting there. He not to say I'm going to take my kids home with me, but to give reasons why he wasn't. So 9 family members was allowed to choose each and every one of them. And I ended up with my cousin, and she was a nurturing and good person. This is my cousin. She's actually my second cousin, but when I was growing up, I always thought she was my aunt because the older generation was like aunts. But when I came into your household and you guys gave me so much love and you showed me how to take care of myself, and it was good time because I was getting up there in age, and because I never knew how to wash myself or wipe myself. Barbara didn't teach me that. So you taught me all of that stuff. I remember you being in the bathroom with me, showing me how to take care of my hygiene because I didn't know, and talking to me. I mean, patiently talking to me. I wasn't used to being like a normal kid because the living situation I came out of. My mother came to the household where I was living, and she called me, Ning, because that's what my mother calls me. So I ran downstairs and I opened up the door and I ran and she hugged me and she said, I love you, I want you to come back and live with me. She told me she loved me, the words that I've been dying to hear from her.
I was crying because I knew I was going to miss you, but I was crying as you was going toward where you were going to stay and going back home to your mother. And I just kept praying on the inside that everything was going to be okay.
Within a week, she severely beat me in the middle of the street for trying to go to school. By then, she had 3 more kids. I realized she wanted a babysitter. She didn't want me back because she loved me. That's my mother over there in the white. I know, I'm just saying.
I know you're not going. That can't.
I desperately need my mother to love me. Sometimes I will be tired and don't want to get high, but she want to get high, so I would go out and prostitute so she could get high. Just so she could love me. I thought that I had to earn her love. And I thought if I go out and prostitute for the drugs, she'll be proud of me. And she would use the drugs and get mad because there's no more. But that's how I always ended up with her. How much? How much you need? Yeah.
I'm going to get it.
I know what you're going to get.
I did. A big one this time because I'm going out.
Well, I didn't know how to live without my mother because I knew I couldn't live with her. So I remember taking an overdose. I remember waking up in the emergency room. I remember when nobody asked me, what happened to you? I remember them telling me, you're going back home with your mother, and being terrified. So she came up with this great idea that one of her drinking buddies who thought I was cute, he was 24, I was a child basically, wanted to marry me. What was that? An opportunity to make my mother proud of me once again. I jumped on it. I'm walking down the aisle. She signed the papers, I didn't even have to be there because I was a minor. So I moved, so I'm married. I'm married and my mother's living with me, and my husband would come home and he would do like this. And if it was dust on his finger, he wanted to know what was I doing all day long that I could not dust his house. Well, there was many beatings because I didn't dust his house. Age 19, somebody came to me and said, try this. And it was crack cocaine. I ain't get no beatings for dusting the house no more, because after one hit of crack, I cleaned my house, I went upstairs, cleaned the neighbor's house, I was outside washing everybody's cars. Shoot, I ain't get that beating no more. But you know what? Using crack cocaine introduced me to the criminal justice system.
Yes, I can help. I love you.
I'm gonna go over here because they want to meet. Hi, sweetie. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Prostitute, and I lost 5 children to the system, but this time, she was troubled. I was wondering if it's possible she could be in a group tomorrow just to... Yeah, absolutely. Did you just... So you ladies was chosen because we think that your story, you collaborating with my story, and sitting here and just doing this focus group, just talking about where you've been, you know, and how things feel for you now and where you want to go. My parents were heroin addicts. In the county where I'm from, there was heroin addiction. Foster care systems, psychiatric facilities. I went through all of that.
I never told my mother that my brother used to molest me. This is the first time I'm telling it now.
Well, my mother not just getting high, her friends get high. You know, people on her job get high. I mean, they get together and have party and get high.
My father would beat my mother all the time, so I saw that. And I ended up going through it myself. Every relationship I've ever had has been abusive. And if they're not abusive towards me, I'll be abusive towards them because I feel that's how they show me love. They don't care about me if they don't put their hands on me when I do something to hurt them.
My mother sacrificed me for the sake of keeping a man. And my first time being molested, I was 4 years old. My mother took my hand and gave it to him and told me, "You going with him to play with his nieces." But when we got to where we was going, wasn't nobody there but me and him. And I remember it being really, really dark. But when I came back, I felt different. And I remember looking at my mother and it seemed like she didn't see anything wrong. And I remember when she took me in a room that night to put me to bed, I wonder why she didn't notice I didn't have on the same panties. Even now, I'm 37 years old, and I sleep with the covers tucked under me for security.
The 80% of our population has been traumatized. The trauma is the underlying reason and the basis that leads to the self-medication, the drug use, and then eventually landing in jail.
But I didn't know how not to come back. I didn't know how to stay clean. And something inside of me I didn't have the motivation to want to be sober. Because I went back to my reality. Homelessness, putting myself in harm's way, staying with people that was going to beat me and hurt me and stuff. Like, you know, so it was easy to just drink and drug. And unfortunately, it landed me right back here really quick.
I spent many, many years working in the state mental health system. I mean, I started volunteering when I was a kid, 14 years old, in the state hospitals. So I spent close to 15 years at the Maximum Security Hospital at Clifton T. Perkins, and then I went on in the state of Maryland to be director for special populations, where I had the responsibility for services to people who were incarcerated, people who were homeless, people who had substance use issues. I've kind of done everything from the clinical work to the administrative work to now looking at promoting what my passion is, trauma-informed care and the understanding of trauma in the lives of those that we serve. Up to 90% of individuals who are in the public mental health system have been victims of trauma. About 85% we know from Department of Justice of girls in the juvenile justice systems have been the victims of early physical or sexual abuse. About 97% of homeless women who have mental health issues have been the victims of trauma while they were on the streets. 87% have been the victims of early childhood abuse. Over 50% of women in substance use programs report histories of incest. I mean, it's just universal.
So this is the ACE study, matching in this very middle-class population. The population is exactly half women, half men by chance. 80% white, including Hispanic, 10% black, 10% Asian, 74% have been to college. In no way is this some dismissible group, that, yeah, well, maybe those people across town, etc. This is basically you and me. And what we found was extraordinary. A, the prevalence of these 10 categories, and B, the remarkable effect that they had 50 years later. 28% of the women have a history of childhood sexual abuse. I mean, who the hell would know that? In terms of injection drug use, a person exposed to any 4 of those categories was 1,350% more likely to become an injection drug user at some point later in life. If you go to ACE score 6, exposure to any 6 of those categories, you're wildly off the scale, because now it's a 4,600% increase in the likelihood that an ACE score 6 individual will become an injection drug user as compared to an ACE score 0 individual. I mean, the epidemiologists at the CDC told me, look, these are numbers that we see once in a lifetime as an epidemiologist, once in a career. So the numbers are of extraordinary magnitude.
Hey,
how are you? Nice to see you.
It's nice to see you. Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled. How was your travel in?
Pretty easy. It was interesting coming in yesterday because the city's changed a great deal, in some ways for the better, in some ways for the worse. I met Tonya Kane several weeks ago at a conference here in Baltimore when this sensible young woman came up and looked me dead in the eye and told me that she had an ACE score of 10, that she had experienced all 10 of the categories that I was talking about.
I don't spend a lot of time around my mother because she, like I said, she's still abusive. But I go to, pay her bills and all, make sure she has food in the house and everything, because she's not only an alcoholic, man, she's a crack addict. I looked at her and I could see the sadness. She was sober, because she was just getting up in the morning. And I wanted so badly to reach out and hug her, but she wouldn't allow that. My mother won't allow us to do that. We're not even allowed to call her mom. We call her Barbara.
Any thoughts why?
I know. But I never really thought about it.
Well, maybe being called mother imposed a responsibility that she didn't feel up to.
Yeah, that's true. Well, just one particular day I had made a deal with these 2 guys, and they had like a massive amount of crack. And I went to them, I said, well, they was trying to talk to me to get me to, do some sexual things for them. I said, well, if you give me this amount of drugs, I'll do this, and this. Well, I thought I was a good negotiator, but I guess I wasn't, because when we were going behind this building, they started to talk among themselves, and when we got back there, they were saying, well, we're not going to give you anything, but you're still going to do this, and this. And after they did that, they beat me really bad. They stomped me, spit on me. And they left. When I was able to get up and get around here, it was an officer. I'm standing against his car. And when he seen me, I was walking to him, and I was in a lot of pain. And when he seen me, he was like, Miss Kane, we've been looking for you. Because I had a failure to appear worn out. I was trying to tell him that these 2 guys that's walking past us laughing at me just did this to me. He thought I was trying to, I guess he thought to run off, and he thought I was resisting. So when he grabbed my arm and put it behind my back and threw me against the car, which cracked my nose open. I'm not angry with them, because people that do things like that, we're talking about 2 guys that's caught up into that street world, and all they know is hurt and violence. Because that's what they grew up with. And my only hope is that they're not doing that to anybody else, because they think it's okay, because they haven't acknowledged it, And but I see people that hurt me all the time, that rape me. I see them all the time. And that was very small.
Tell me something about cocaine. What's the good part of it?
What's the good part of a crack cocaine? It's a number. It absolutely, positively numbs out any feeling you have, only for a few seconds. That's why you got to keep doing it again and again. but there is no concern. So I mean, I used to take a hit of crack cocaine, and I used to get high on the fact that I had it in my hand. It didn't even get in my system yet, but because I know in the next few seconds I'm gonna be somewhere else, and I don't have to deal with reality.
An effective treatment.
An effective treatment. Yeah.
And that kind of forces the question, treatment of what?
Right.
Which is kind of uncomfortable for a lot of people to hear.
Yeah.
And I think I had mentioned to you about crystal meth.
Right.
And how pretty much everybody knows that's the most commonly sold street drug in the country. And no one seems to know that the first prescription antidepressant medication introduced in 1940 was methamphetamine. And it was the main prescription antidepressant for the next 20 years. So does that mean something? Yeah, and then you get to think, well, it's a lot easier to say to somebody, my kid's on crystal meth because that damn drug dealer's in the neighborhood than it is to say my kid's buying antidepressants on the street.
Right.
I couldn't use drugs and alcohol because I was in jail. So I had to find something that helped me cope, and that's what helped me cope. I would fight, I would argue, I would cuss, I would go on lock, and I'd get off lock, I'd do my lock time, and oh well, see y'all later, I'll be back. And I would mutilate myself, my thighs, my neck had cuts, my arms. And it wasn't to kill myself, just to get the pain out. That was just a way to express the trauma. I felt helpless. I felt powerless. And being a woman in a powerless situation, it brought trauma. Because the trauma came from those situations where as though I was taken advantage of and felt powerless.
Would you mind, Kristen, do you mind if I see where you were doing it yourself? Can I see that? Because I know you showed before. What do you use?
I would take and bust the glass out in my room and take the pieces of the glass and cut myself up, cut my neck. I would break the toilet seat, break the glass out in the doors and the windows. Or I take a stapler, I take the staples out the bed. Or I took an eggshell one time. The hard on the eggshell, just to get that pain out, being locked in that room, nobody want to deal with me, nobody. It's the environment too. Trauma, your environment. Environment is like the core, it's like the setup for trauma. And being in that environment and being locked in that room, small as a bathroom behind that door 24 hours a day, already having trauma issues, it didn't help at all.
In the detention center, I had suicide watches and because I wouldn't stay on my medications that the psychiatrist prescribed to me, they would put you in segregation. Then they strip you down because you suicide, you nude. So you got the male officers coming around flashing the lights. Why are you in here? Nude, no mattress, no clothes, and you have male officers that's coming and checking, laughing at you. Lay down, spread your legs open. And that was my experience with the county jail. Yeah, or they would do things like, you had a couple of them that would open up the slot and they would put their penis loose so you can give them some head. And they would give you like a cigarette or something. So the men was able to do things without being watched. And they could hear the door open. So they will, put their penises through the little slots. Give him some head, I'll give you a cigarette. I'll give you some gum. Yeah. Oh, I know, girl, but it's just... Give me some tissue. And that was one of the earliest experiences of my incarceration. And you did things because... And I don't even know if it was because they was promising you cigarettes and nothing, but just because somebody was there for a moment, Thank you. So yeah, those are an experience of being in seclusion or the hole at the jail. That's all the things that came with that. And there wasn't any therapy because when the psychiatrist come, he just gave you more and more medication.
Yeah. Why is there no trauma treatment? I think there's not a whole lot of people trained to do it. But it's, Then you have the non-believers and some of the old guard that still thinks, you can just give somebody a pill and it's all going to be better.
The issue of the public health paradox is really what forces one to recognize, if you wish to think seriously about this at all, that so-called trauma-informed care really becomes essential. Trauma-informed care is understanding how the thing that you're dealing with is the problem really is also someone's attempted solution to traumatic experiences in life, usually, not always, but usually in childhood, overwhelmingly unrecognized, further protected by deep shame, by secrecy, and by social taboos against exploring certain areas of human experience that are just terribly uncomfortable to explore.
Trauma-informed care is an entire culture shift. It takes traditional practice and flips it upside down. It isn't just teaching someone, what is trauma and why is it so important to address it. It really forces the system to totally redo and rethink all of their practice. And coercion, and all of those practices, seclusion and restraint, coercive practices, level systems. I mean, there's so many practices that need to be flipped upside down.
Sleeping on the streets, underneath the bridge, eating out of a trash can, not even having the desire to live anymore. 5 years ago, I didn't think that anybody could help me. And this is the bridge. This is the bridge. I'll go down and see. Doing? Jay, we're about to come down here and do some filming, so you might not want to be doing what you're doing. Home for so long, for so many years. I just remember just hearing the cars going over top of me. That would brought memories back because I would lay here and I could hear the car. And in a way that gave me some peace because that people is there, up there. It was like, you hear crickets, some people hear crickets at night and it gives them, it soothes them and put them into a peaceful sleep. Oh, hear the cars. It just was all just mud and sand and they put these bricks here, I guess to stop people from sleeping underneath. And now they have nowhere to go. But just a little less than 5 years ago, I was sleeping underneath here. I was taking a hit of crack, prostituting. When it comes to a point where we feel safer underneath a bridge, a filthy, dirty bridge, where we're exposed to violence and rapes and everything, when it's safer out here, it's just a problem with that. There's a problem. I felt safer right here than anywhere else other than just in jail. And that's sad. For 19 years. What's today, Landra?
We go to Mama. Oh my God.
Thanksgiving Day?
Yes.
What are you thankful for?
Mommy.
There you go, you did it. It won't tell me. See? You did it.
Let me try it. I did it! Come on. Let's go.
We're in Newtown 20 and it's in Annapolis, Maryland. It's one of the highest crime rate areas on project communities. It's where my sister Tanya lives. Happy Thanksgiving to you too. Hey Tanya. What's up?
And I'm telling you now, something's always going to end up. Somebody's going to be mad at somebody, or it's going to be an argument.
This is my sister Tanya.
I know she's leaving us.
What you doing? Yeah, she's moving to Georgia. She's going down south.
Yes, I know, and I cannot wait. You guys want to go?
Yes, we're going to go.
Don't take them. I didn't ask you to take them out the pack.
Look, I can't take this. It's stressful. Put it back in the pack.
No, because nobody's eating them. No.
Hello. Hi, everybody. This is my sister Shannon. Y'all remember Shannon? If she's not ready, call her. If she's not ready, just come back here. She will get her when we get her. All right. My mother is so intoxicated that she can't get it together. So, this is really a nice Thanksgiving day. Yeah, Landra!
No but homegrown. That made the day. That made that day the chillin'. Hey, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Ooh, here we go.
Who drank? Sorry.
Who fell? Brandon?
Just every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every day.
I just want to make sure there's enough food for everyone to eat, get full, and take a plate if they want.
I'm a mannequin. Me make salad like that is tomato.
I make salad I like. Yeah.
It's gross as shit. Put that bottle down.
No, you. That's why I'm leaving.
Put that goddamn bottle.
Because of her is why I moved. Just because. And I love her to death. Anytime she ever need me, I'm gonna be there. But right now she don't need me. She wanna do her and be her. So I'm gonna go and do me. What's gonna do it?
I'm 59 years old. I'm tired of drinking. I drink a lot. I drink beer. Tired of it. And I need long. I don't need to go to bed because I just need long. I just drink beer, you know. I don't even know why I drink. Right now, puzzled. But I want to stop. You know, I can stop. I'm gonna go it. I'm so sorry. Gave me money, food stamp. You know, gave to me that. Mom, come here with hungry kids. I don't want to make me pregnant. I love all my kids. Now I got 10 daughters. I got 6 daughters and 4 kids. I'm sorry, 4 sons.
I'm getting out of here.
And you know what? None of all of them. But you know what? I would take that be the best mama. If I was on there all the way. I would never the best mama. You know why I was? I did my kids wrong. They got took from me and some more shit. This is my son. Come here, baby. This is my youngest son. His name Monterey. I love you, kid.
How y'all doing?
I ain't never did anything for him. Come here.
Yeah, she did. She gave me life.
No. I said that. I love you, baby.
I love you too.
Look at, ain't he handsome? Black handsome. Believe me, I love you, baby.
I love you too.
I love you.
Stop it.
Barbara.
Look,
Yeah.
Look. And that's her door.
Yeah. It's cold right here. Sure, probably doesn't. Huh? Put on a coat. I know it's shades. Put it on.
Stop it.
Shut up.
No, man.
Shut the fuck up.
No, you want me to shut up? You can just go. Like you just go.
I know. There you go. Here.
Did the camera get that?
Going out. Bye. You can't stay this time with me. You know what? I don't like him, but I love him. That motherfucker too smart. I'll tell you what. Want the red shopper. I don't like him, but I love him. Cause he's a smart bitch.
You ready to go home?
Yeah.
Can you just sit for a sister? Okay, baby, good night.
Yeah, next day you do.
Good night. And happy Thanksgiving to you. And you have a nice night.
Bye, baby. I love y'all. I love y'all. It doesn't stay okay. I love her too. But mom.
I'm gonna do that with my daughter have to be picked up in the evening. Maybe we should do a trauma training for the cab company. Here you go. All right.
Toni is an amazing woman, a passionate advocate, a great leader in the field, an amazing speaker. We've known each other for 5 years, back when I first met Toni, when she was at the Women's House of Correction in Jessup, and she was pregnant out here. She now, as of yesterday, officially has become the team leader for the newly funded National Center for Trauma-Informed Care, which we couldn't be. A joy to be with, and when you hear her story, I think you're going to be absolutely as moved as I am every time I hear her as well. So for that, my friend, Toni Arcane.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so thrilled to be here in New York City. I'm down at Maryland Correctional Institution for Women for violation of parole. And I'm pregnant. And I'm terrified that I'm about to lose another child. And I remember running around and telling people about my fears. I don't want to lose my baby, and I'm going to have this baby. And they were telling me about this program called Tamar's Children. Well, they said, you know, it works on your trauma. I said, well, I don't know what that is, but I know I got it. And it works on your addiction. I said, well, that's a given. Your mental health, yep, I'm crazy. You recover and you keep your baby with you. Perfect program for me, right? I was keeping my baby. And the first thing that someone said to me when I got to this program, the first session I had, my therapist told me, everything that happened to you as a child happened to you, you didn't do to yourself. And I believed her. And we started to work. See, because you good folks, you know, substance abuse, even some judges, even parole and probation, try to help me, try to give me some tools on how to live. But you know, the good information is only surface. It couldn't get where it needed to get for me to get it rooted so I can build a foundation and grow from. So my belief system can change from I am nothing to I am somebody, and I can be anything I want in this world. You had to get it out of me to get the good information down there where it needed to be. My therapist, her first task was to help me to feel safe. Because without feeling safe, there was no healing for me. Everything that I needed, I was able to get from this program. I had someone to help me to understand parenthood. You know, helping me to form a secure attachment with my child. I didn't know how to be a mother. You know, I know how to give birth to a baby. And then she said, it's time to work on your children. No. I said, no. How do you heal from something that's still going on? Okay, my mother didn't love me as a child. She didn't show me love. Okay, that happened. That was there. I was raped, I was hurt, I was beat, I was raped, I was hurt, I was beat. Okay, that's happening no more. But my children are still living. They're still walking this earth somewhere, and I know nothing about them. How do you heal from that? And she said, you do, but not by yourself. So I had to talk about my daughter when she was only 10 days old, and when they came and they took her away from me and they put me in jail. And the way that my son looked when they grabbed him and he was crying, Mommy, don't let them take me. I had to remember that. I had to remember my son being picked up for the weekend and never brought back. and yet it was work. I'm exhausted. I've been on travel now for, it seems like 2 weeks straight, like maybe going home one day just to repack. I'm just ready to go home to my daughter now and hold her. I miss her a lot. And I've really been missing my children a lot lately. I guess, yeah, the holidays coming up. I always get like this near the holidays. You know. I do. I miss them so much. That'll never get better. It gets easier, but it'll never get better. I've been so emotional lately, and I just miss them. I miss Keith, Brandon, Whitney, and Joshua. It really began to bother me that I may never see them again. And that breaks my heart. And this is the 5th floor. This is the floor where I work. This is the Office of Technical Assistance, one of the units or departments from the National Association of State Program Directors. And this is Boss Lady. This is my supervisor, Pat Shea. She's the Deputy Director for the Office of Technical Assistance.
I first met Tonier when I was doing volunteer work at a jail diversion program in Baltimore City. And I would go there every Monday and hold the babies. When I see her today giving a speech or even just attending to details in the office, and it's hard to even believe that this is the same person. It's really been an almost literal transformation.
I wasn't available, so they delayed Mother's Day for me to come out and speak. So that's why I stuck Oklahoma in for the 26th of June, and it's Lawton.
We're going to speak together in San Diego at the San Diego Children's Hospital Conference, which is an international meeting attracting about 2,000 people, literally from around the world, to a conference on child abuse. And I have no doubt that she will steal the show with the story of her life, and has this extraordinarily improbable change that occurred several years ago. I think she may have profound insights still to share.
And this is June. And as you can see, I'm about to go to Montana, leave there to go to New York City, then leave there to go to New York State, then to California, then to Washington State, Tacoma, Vancouver, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Texas. Thank you.
Every place she goes, people are inspired. I mean, every place she goes, we get 25 emails, afterwards. Brings all the agencies together. Substance abuse, mental health, corrections, the legislature. So after that talk that she did the first day for transformation, the lieutenant governor called a session of the House and Senate of the legislature in Hawaii. She went and spoke to them. The head of the mental health agency has decided that he wants to take trauma-informed care not just to psychiatric hospitals, but to the general hospitals. And this all happened really as a result of Tony's going there and people listening to her message.
There are different evidence-based interventions that are out there that have been demonstrated to be effective at preventing child maltreatment and improving child and family functioning. The problem is that we are not a prevention-oriented society. We tend to be very reactive instead of proactive, much to the detriment of the children in our country. So we like to look at the emergency that's right at hand, and when it comes to funding, prevention programs are just sort of seen as fluff. If there's extra money left over, if we get a grant, then maybe we'll pay for prevention. But otherwise, we don't want to invest resources. just doesn't make sense. It's like saying, we can't possibly spend money installing seat belts in cars because we have to spend all of our money over here stitching up people's foreheads. It simply doesn't make sense. And when we look at a person like Tonier, how much suffering would she, her mother, her siblings have avoided if appropriate supports were put in place for that family very early on?
For Landra, she lives in a home where she's being loved, where I own my own home. She's been given the opportunity to go to a private school where she'll get the best education. She's being hugged all the time and told that she's loved and worthwhile.
She will never know what it's like to be hungry or to wait for somebody to be able to get money to feed her. Treating my trauma totally broke that intergeneration curse. I'm told that she's conditioned by her environment. She adjusts to what she's learned. And if that's the case, then she will be able to give her children what she was given. So that curse has been broken, and we begin to look at a different cycle in our generation path from here on out.
Keep talking about it. Keep bringing it up. Keep talking about it. Because you're going to come across somebody that's going to listen. And you already had that person. Warden Shell is an amazing warden who's really care about her inmates, especially the ones that have been traumatized. So.
And everybody asks me what I want to do and what I want to become. I just want a normal life. Yeah. Just normal. Now, I don't want to be the superstar. Yeah. I don't want to be a teacher, nothing. I just want a normal life. I want a house. Whenever you said about your own home, that's been a dream of mine since I was a little kid, was to have my own home. And I tell myself, one day I am going to have a home. I'm going to have kids in a big backyard playing, and I'm going to be a wife and my mother. Just normal. I hate this life, and I don't know why it's so hard for me to get out of. I want to just forget it all. I don't want to remember anything.
How would you listen?
I abused my own self. It came to the point in my life where I was so used to being abused that when no one was there to do it, I beat my own self up. I finished the job. I have this saying that nobody can kick your ass worse than you. And that learning to love yourself kind of gets on my nerves sometimes because I don't know where to begin with that. Where does the growing begin? Where does the healing begin? I have no idea. And I need to know. I need to know how to start.
Can I come closer to you? I don't know if you know this, but the healing already began for you. It started yesterday when you opened up to us and you said that you needed help. You asked for it. I can't imagine how it's going to begin for the loss of your children, because everybody's different. But I do identify with it. I do know the feeling of loss, the feeling of loneliness, the feeling of darkness, the feeling of nobody's going to help me because I'm nothing. But I'm here, and you're somebody special, and I'm going to be there for you if you let me. Your process has begun, and I'm not going anywhere until you get through it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for this. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I need to help people. I need people to be able to grow and move in my direction, because a lot of people see me and automatically know that I did it and they can do it. When paramedics come to a house and somebody have a heart attack, they feel the pulse. And you know what? It could be faint. You could hardly hear it. And you might even not have a pulse, but they get to working on that person, don't they? And they try to resuscitate that person. So why can't we do that for the people that the trauma victims and the people that's suffering in substance abuse out there? Why can't we keep working to resuscitate their lives? Why can't we keep working at it? Why can't we work at it ourselves? 83 arrests and 66 convictions. 3 times down here and multiple times in the county jail. They said I was going to spend the rest of my life in jail and die. I wasn't going to amount to anything. Not so. Not so. It was so incredible just to look out into the audience and see me and see them in the future. My daughter was just accepted into the Key School, which is one of the best private schools in Maryland. You know, and yes, I'm living the American dream. I'm in debt. If this woman was in your office standing before you, and you was their parole probation officer, would you be able to see me today? And I can do snake. I'm not doing anything that nobody else can do. You can probably do even more. You go even further than me. Because as long as you believe, as long as you have breath in your body, that there is hope. As long as there's breath, there's hope.
Okay. How'd you guys like that film? Pretty positive at the end, I would say, after all the films that we have seen. Any first thoughts on the film? Does anybody want to share?
She's a boss.
Fair enough, right? She had everything going against her.
It just took that one program to turn it around.
The trauma-informed program. Totally. So speaking of trauma-informed care, based off of this movie and what we've learned, how would you guys define what trauma-informed care is?
What do you mean, like how?
What do you think? Yeah, what do you think trauma-informed care is?
So like being in for like how you would give care to someone under trauma.
Yeah.
Like just understanding, one, coming to their level, giving them to let them know. Always, in a victim situation, it's not your fault. Something to let them know.
Number one, right off the bat, I think that's a great point. Is trauma-informed care is letting people know that this is what has happened to you. This is not what you did or cause of what you did. Even those kind of like that language using this is something that has been done onto you instead of that you brought onto yourself is like really healing in a way. Anybody else?
People want to be listened to and heard. So when you talk to some people and they tear up, it's like, finally, somebody just wants to know about me.
Sure.
And what I need. Instead of, you're going to do all of this. Like, here.
Right.
And let's hear your story and go, yeah, and agree with them and not like tell different ways.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point, giving time and space to just let somebody talk. I mean, it's interesting, we focus on domestic violence and sexual violence, but there could be a lot of more things behind that instead of the first problem that they're coming through the door and presenting, especially even with substance abuse like she demonstrated, is there was so much childhood trauma and even trauma leading up to when she was incarcerated and things like that caused her to use and get her children taken away. And I feel like a lot of people who aren't trauma-informed and aren't using trauma-informed practices focus on one thing and don't focus on different forms of trauma. I mean, she had even intergenerational trauma in there. Cool. How and why did Neen use drugs, so primarily crack cocaine, to self-medicate or treat her trauma from both childhood and adult sexual abuse? So why did she use it?
Did not have to feel it.
Did not have to feel it. And so, and when it comes to trauma-informed care, if you weren't trauma-informed care, what would it look like if somebody told you that they just used crack cocaine? What would some things going on in your mind start to think?
There's something going on.
There's something going on.
They don't talk to anybody, so like they start doing that, so they forget about whatever the problem is.
Sure. So that's the trauma-informed approach. Like, they may be using drugs to cover up or hide or something part of your life, instead of just looking at them as a drug addict and, you know, they like drugs and all the different stigmas that you can use around people who do use drugs. You look at them as a whole person again, and acknowledging that this is how they self-cope and it's unhealthy. Another way that a trauma-informed care is also great is approaching it as talking about healthy coping skills. So her coping skill was using crack cocaine, talking about what safe coping skills, because we all cope, right? It's a natural human response. And so talking about what safe coping skills look like, and then judging her progress through case management or, through daily life activity is how she uses healthy coping skills instead of turning to substance abuse. Okay?
The whole prison system is kind of weird in that they're not treated as human beings. It's like put them in a box.
Sure.
Some documentary I watched years ago, they went with Michael Moore and they went to different countries. In one country, I think it was Norway, where they actually went in and each prisoner was treated like a human in a different way, and so then their return rate was like so little, and they had all the help, because it was the percentages of people who are in prison on this movie were, a lot of them had something that wasn't great, and so they're a victim of, and then they're still a victim, and it's pretty sick. It's not cool.
I think that's like part of like a cycle she was talking about that she was able to break in her family. Is like something I grew up right around it, like when there's housing projects and like all these government funded programs, where they're getting food stamps and these things, and then they go into a system that all the prisons are privately owned, like the county does and all that's not going to county level. Even those, they need money, the sheriffs, all of them, they need money because the populations matter, so it's like, it's kind of like all the, the housing projects where these people on Section 8 and you get food stamps and all this, and they know they're drug addicts. It's almost like a pond that they're able to fish from in order to fill the prisons and fill all these institutions that get government money that's going to private pockets. It's a huge system that has to be addressed at the highest level. Definitely, like private prisons has to be addressed. That's just ridiculous in this privatization. And that's why they're treated the way they are, because they're a commodity, they're money, they're numbers. So it's benefits them to keep them in the system and kind of rehabilitate them, put them back out and bring them back in, because once they're in the system, it's easier, and then their children in the system. That's why they're going to take them away instead of try to rehabilitate the mother from the get-go and give her real help and keep her around her children, help her and keep the children around, put the money where it should be. They're going to put the kids in foster home, give some money to the foster parents, and the foster parents are mostly signing up this for the money too. It's all a jacked up system we're talking about.
It's very institutionalized.
It's institutionalized.
You make a great point, Rebecca.
Yeah, so that's the prison in Maryland, and so I have friends that have been there and friends that work there, and on both sides. And honestly, it's like a quick question when you walk in, like if you've had some sort of traumatic experience, no one's really even explained what that is or what's going to do for you. I'd say at least 95% of drug addicts, in Baltimore at least, have severe multiple childhood trauma. They don't know. It's not public information. So if they're doing to their kids, or even half the level that their parents were doing, they think, oh well, at least their daddy ain't raping them or whatever. It's almost And I'm not trying to take away anything from her or like any, I'm just like, she's awesome for sure, but unfortunately that is like the reality of so many people and it's just the norm. And they don't know, they'll go to, you know, rehabs or jail or whatever, and they're not, like, they don't know that it's because of their trauma that they're having all these issues. And while, I mean, it's awesome they're doing that, but like so many people that in that same jail she was in don't get that same opportunity.
Right, it's very
It was never explained, like, it's not explained to them.
Because they
It's
didn't
like
know they were going through trauma.
not the norm, and they don't know that that is trauma. They don't know that seeing their dad get shot when they were 10 years old in front of their face is a trauma.
So they don't claim
They
trauma?
don't know that. They don't realize that that's just the norm for everyone.
Well, it
And
seems
so-
like she got access to the program because she
No.
was pregnant.
Yeah, that's
you know,
awesome.
and that's it. You know, what happens to the people who weren't pregnant?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, you make a very good point. You can't even recognize those people. Can't even recognize trauma.
They can't even
and so,
say-
if you can't even
Exactly.
recognize it, how do you even
That's
get help?
just normal life. And Jessup has a lot of really great programs that people can go in and go through there for years and still not even know about a lot of their programs because it's such a huge prison.
And they need to take
but-
trauma off a checklist and actually,
Or like,
you know,
yeah,
address it in a certain way.
Yeah, it's just one question. Like it should be, they should follow up, and it should be like something that's sat down and talked about and talked through. Like so many evaluations, like psych evaluations, you have to sit down and kind of like talk through it layer by layer. Like it should be the same.
But they don't have any money, and people, the drug counselors with their associate's degrees, they don't even know that the patients they're treating are this way because of trauma.
Right.
You wouldn't even know that unless you have like a bachelor's or higher.
It's interesting that they just think like
So-
medication is the cheaper option.
Well, I
Oh,
think,
yeah.
like Danny was saying, it's more profitable to give medication because then you have people coming back for more and more medication
Yeah.
and it just continues the cycle. It's a Band-Aid on a problem versus getting the person healthy, then they never come back to you, and then now the corporation doesn't need to stay in business. Kind of what you're saying? And
Yeah, like it takes a lot less time to just give the medication. It takes a lot of time to heal traumas, and just that he said 80% of the population has been traumatized. That seems like nearly everybody. And so she's just, you know, been really saved, I think. And there's no talk about religion, but you know, there has to be some reason why that one person gets the blessing. You know, it kind of seems like a blessing that she can
works
go
for
out
that.
and talk to people about it and change
She's
lives.
very open.
It seems interesting. If 80% of people are traumatized, why isn't the system to help and be focused on trauma?
But which system?
Well, the jail system, the mental health system.
Yeah.
Right. Well, there needs, like Danny said, there needs to be changes, and there has been push changes, and it just needs to be brought to light and things like that.
Like the one says, all flipped on its head.
Right.
You have to rewrite the whole book. And who's gonna be in charge of rewriting the book?
Who did that woman work for that said that?
Yeah.
I think she works for. I think she was the head department of mental health services.
director, I think.
Like I worked in the hospital, I worked here, worked there, worked there.
Oh, she
It was
said
like
she was
the
in my since
national-
14, she was already volunteering, yeah.
It was like the National Health of Trauma Informed Care.
And she had become the director.
Yeah.
I believe.
The boss lady.
Isn't there
Yes.
stuff that they've been doing yoga in prisons and in schools and areas where there's violence, and it's actually made a huge difference. It's like, that's simple and it's not that difficult to do.
And it's
So
not
like-
expensive.
Yeah, and training people, helping people to see what a calm mind and a calm head feels like, even if it's for a few minutes, that, oh, this feels good. It's like,
Yeah.
so that's a simple.
Well, I think it says a lot about the fact that, you know, you hear about these parolees and pit bulls and all of these things where suddenly prisoners are being treated like humans. It's like this revolutionary, look at all the difference it makes. And it's like, well, they're people. Like, but the focus on them has never been, they're a marginalized demographic. The solution with them has never been rehabilitation, ever, with any of them. I mean,
No, it's been focused on the punishment.
yeah, always. I mean, and it's that was a really sad part of watching that. It's not that you don't know it. I mean, everybody knows that that's how the prisons are. But it's just so sad to see it like spoken from an actual person and not just the statistics behind it. But you know, like that whole thing, my sister-in-law was addicted to meth for years. And when she finally got clean because she got put in court. They gave her a choice between jail or rehab. She went to rehab, but she didn't really want to. And it took a long time for her to get through her trauma and all that stuff before she came out on the other side, and she can look at it all now 15 years later of being clean and totally recognize that that's what it's all about. But the fact that nobody puts that focus on trying to actually help the person that's behind all of this stuff is just beyond disturbing.
Sure, and how do you move forward without fixing or talking about the
Well, like
past?
Becca said, if people don't even know that that's trauma for them, like they can't begin to heal that. They have, and it's just,
so much
it's,
trauma
yeah.
buried, like it's not even, you forget about it, like, you know.
Yeah, sometimes it needs to be triggered or dug up.
Well,
Like, that's like,
I think it kind of even focuses back on like, maybe not directly related, but like, you know, I've been a victim of sexual assault in my life, and there was a long time where I didn't speak about it or acknowledge that's what it was because at least I wasn't raped. I didn't get raped, so dismissing it. And I think that kind of thing can even happen with the trauma. If you're not telling people, you know, you've been through something and helping them work through it, they'll diminish their own and minimize their own trauma over and over again. Like Becca said, you know, at least I wasn't getting raped by my dad. At least, you know, my dad never beat me or whatever else. But there's whatever that other trauma was for them, they just don't recognize it.
That's a really good point. All right. And then one more thing I just wanted to talk about was the concept of intergenerational cycles of violence and acknowledging those. So why do you think that sexual abuse and domestic violence often become apparent throughout generations within a family?
Because they were taught that. And it starts as a kid, that's what you learn, that's what you're taught. And then when you grow up, that's so ingrained in your mind because kids are so easily manipulated into anything.
Something that stuck out in the movie was the white lady with the blonde hair who was talking about how when she kept getting in abusive relationships, and if they weren't abusing her, she would do it so they would abuse her, so she could just feel what she thought was love. And it makes you think that when you're growing up as a child and the things that you learn are taught by the people you're around the most, so whether that's family or other friends' family and things like that, and if that's not appropriate, that's what you learn is appropriate though, and that will lead on to bigger life. I mean, she is physically what somebody would call asking for it, but that's just all she knows, you know, is that act of violence is love to her. And it seems so interesting how that conceptualizes in the mind and then how to kind of break that cycle.
Yeah, because they make those connections so young that it's like once that connection's made, it's so hard to break it and to change that.
Yeah, and then, you know, it's not even like the physical act of seeing it, it's also like emotionally. So if a parent was abused, they're putting all those implicit memories like on the child, and they can grow up with anxiety or depression because the mother experienced that. And then like with the ACEs score, that has health outcomes. So like if you were raped or your parents divorced or something like that, you could have higher levels of blood pressure, heart disease, and everything like that, and that is like intergenerational too.
Similar to the intergenerational stuff, like they're finding out that emotions can be imprinted in your DNA. So going back to Holocaust survivors, you know, that fear is passed on. There's a book called Healing Ancestral Karmas, and that is, you know, a good read, I think. You know, it's about taking on what your ancestors that have passed on, they weren't able to resolve their karma, but we are in a position to reverse all that by the fact of self-knowledge and realizing what they went through and what is happening. And there's another book called the 5 love languages, which I think can be helpful for victims as well. You know, for me, what I get out of it is that you should try to activate all 5 of your languages. This is like, you know, spending time or physical love, doing favors, affirmations. There's basically the 5 different ways that you can express love and you can feel it. And so, you know, if your dad or whoever is only giving gifts, you know, and not really giving you that emotional support that's some people are exactly, and different people have a different profile, but again, evolving self-realization of being accepting on all levels can only help.
What is that called? 5 languages?
The 5 love languages.
It's online.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah, I love this.
Yeah, and it was part of our marriage preparation through the Catholic Church.
I see.
But, you know, it's really stuck with me over the years beyond just my husband, you know, understanding my relationship with all of my family and,
Well, it's
and knowing
teaching.
myself,
Yes.
how I express it too, and trying to diversify.
Yeah, so I think that's great. And it's a good, you know, intergenerational violence is something that we're seeing that's happening. And she was able to break that cycle, as she told at the end, and was lucky enough to do that. But we're seeing, you know, grandma, mom, you know, dad, things like that. And it's we need services that support whole families, because it's whole families that are creating these children that have been exposed to so much violence that they can't even recognize it anymore. They can't even ask for help anymore. And it gets to the point where it's like, okay, when this has happened, instead of focusing on one person, let's focus on the family and try to fix it that way. There's a big push for that, especially with like we talked about a little bit at the beginning with abuser or perpetrator services and things like that. If somebody knows that they're doing this and wants to get help, where do they go? They don't get help, you know? They're stigmatized and things like that, so. Anything else about the film or that we want to close on? I just want to end that I think it's really great to, you know, if somebody ever comes to you and they're in a crisis, or to acknowledge them for the trauma that they've experienced and looking at them as a whole person instead of just what they're coming to you as, and just remembering that they are a whole person and they could break the cycle that they're going through, and acknowledge the trauma with some help. Okay?